Hi, everybody. It's Amanda from Vax Canada, and today we are sitting down with Cullen McDonald, and I'm going to let him get into an introduction with you so you can all learn about the group a little bit more. So, Cullen, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to have you here. I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can introduce yourself and your organization, and we'll start from there. Okay.
Awesome. Yes, Amanda, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time, and hi to all your viewers. So as you mentioned, my name is Cullen McDonald. I'm from a group called Hugs Over Masks. So we are a activist group based out of Toronto that has formed obviously from the necessity of standing up for our rights and freedoms here as we are in these unprecedented times. So Hugs Over Masks is a group, a non-partisan group of individuals, business owners, family members, moms, dads, you name it. We all have united together under this common cause, and obviously with the name Hugs Over Masks, our main focus right now is the mandatory masking that's gone on, which we'll dive into, I'm sure.
Yep.
But of course, we're here for everything, right? We're here for our rights and freedoms. We're here, obviously, to stand against the mandatory vaccine conversation that we'll have inevitably. So that's a little bit about who we are.
Wonderful. Now, has there been any attempts to contain your message by outside influence, or have you had much resistance to your attempts to organize?
Oh, constantly. It has been since day one. We noticed, so actually I'll give you a little bit of background. Where I came into the picture was actually being censored online. And I'm sure you guys are well versed in that. We all know. Yes. And the censorship has just gotten crazy. And that's actually what got me out. That's what got me out was when my conversations online started getting censored. And we took to the streets. And of course, you know, we expected, okay, we're going to protest here in Toronto. We're at Queen's Park. We're going to get some coverage, right? We're going to get some media attention. None.
Nope.
None at all. And that was sort of the signs of the times, because we realized that, you know, these protests and all of our actions are not even being noticed. They're being completely ignored. If it doesn't fit their narrative, they're not going to put it on the mainstream. As far as censorship, yeah, every step of the way. And we're having to come up with creative ways to get noticed now.
Exactly. Now, what are the turnouts like? Are they growing by the week, or?
Yeah, we've noticed that. I mean, we're definitely growing in numbers every single week. The protests, they peaked probably around end of May, June. We were around 1,000 people every week out in Toronto. But now we're expanding beyond Toronto, and that's where we'll talk about the outreach teams that we're growing, because yeah, we can't just be in one city, right? So we want to make this a national movement.
Right, and it's expanding quickly because people are catching on, right? It's
Yep.
great. It's great to see that people are finally getting up and taking action, because nothing else is going to do it at this point.
Use that.
So, what are the most relevant COVID misconceptions or underreported facts that motivate your group?
Oh, where do you start? Where do you start? Obviously, our main concern right now is the masking conversation. And I mean, within that, you talk about misconceptions or just flat out lies, ignored science. It's endless, right? But I mean, we know all of it, right? From the falsified data. Here we have public health, Toronto Public Health saying that they're combining deaths with COVID and of COVID. Mm-hmm. Now, this was a true pandemic that was ravaging this country. Wouldn't we want accurate information? So at what point do you say, okay, why are they doing that? You know, why would they do that? But falsifying the data every step of the way. Right. And the other side of it is not talking, we talk about misconceptions, not talking about the immune system, not talking about, you know, what health, eating healthy organic food, sunlight, vitamin D, vitamin C, all these things that could be enhancing our immunity. Nobody's talking about it. We don't hear Dr. Teresa Tam talking about it. None of the public health officials. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that we're helpless, and we're not. We know this virus has a 99.7% survival rate. We know that the risk is very dependent on age. And for the vast majority of Canadians, almost 90% under the age of 70, your risk of dying is almost zero. It's very close to zero.
Yeah.
So, misconceptions all along the way.
Yeah. And the lack of transparency, like the insanity, like who is this COVID team that they're referring to constantly, but no one can know about, right?
Yeah, we would love to know. We've asked, and they won't tell us.
No.
So.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So your group did a march against masks, is that correct?
Yeah, so that was actually a collaborative effort. There's a bunch of groups in this movement. So that was a collaborative effort. We definitely teamed up with our movement. We have been outreaching from Toronto now. We started in Toronto. Now we're moving to every major city in Canada, sorry. So we teamed up with Ryan. He had that March on Mask. But we've been doing marches for the last, at least say 8 or 10 weeks in Toronto.
Yeah. And how are the participants received by the community that they're marching in? Have you heard feedback?
It's mixed. Like any movement, right? With vaccine awareness, when you challenge the narrative, the public, the narrative, you're going to be met with mixed reviews. And we knew that all along. So we definitely get some one finger salutes, and we get a lot of clapping, a lot of honks, and it's great to see, especially when we see, taxi drivers, city workers, ambulance drivers, they're honking for us,
Yeah.
So, and that's who we've been standing. We've been standing up here for 15 weeks for the small businesses, for the people, the regular people that hold this country together, and so although we come from a place of compassion too, right? So when we're met with these people that don't understand what we're all about, they just see our marches and assume that we're trying to
Make trouble.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot in the last little while as far as marches and protests. So we have to be very careful with our visual narrative. So one thing we like to do is when people give us the middle finger, we just say we love you. We're here for you. We're here for your kids. And they don't understand it, but we do. And there'll become a day when they understand what we were doing was right.
Yep. And they're driven by fear, right? So there has to be a sympathy there.
Yeah.
There really does. And I love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, there we go.
It's great. I love it.
Yeah, and you know what? It sends such a positive message. And even people that don't know what we're about, they see Hugs Over Masks, and they've been inside for 4 months. They've been longing to hug their loved ones. They've been in a state of mental anguish and distress this whole time. Their kids just want to get out and play. They see hugs, and that strikes a chord, right? Like they feel everyone needs a hug right now.
Yeah, there's so much division that it's sickening. It's just sickening. And there needs to be a message of unity. And that's why I love your shirt. First and foremost, I'm all about the unity and bringing people together, right? And freedom, of course. But okay, so what kind of data should school administrators focus on when making decisions concerning reopening schools, in your opinion?
Oh, good question. That's a really good question. That's one thing that a big part of our movement actually is, not only focus on adults, but obviously one of the biggest drivers is the children and their imminent return to school. So that the two sources that I would reference, and these are pretty mainstream sources. You have the study that the Sick Kid Hospital did in Toronto, right? And that was it. Their recommendation, of course, they recommended hand hygiene, social distancing, which we may not agree with, but their underlying mention regarding masking was that masking should not be forced on children in schools, and it should not be made mandatory in schools for a number of reasons, right? And we know this even in the public sector, is that when you have these masks, and there's a plethora of scientific evidence to support this, but you have a number of side effects of wearing them, right? So not only are you going to lower your oxygen and increase your carbon dioxide intake, but also the moisture and bacteria that builds on the inside of these masks they have to be changed at least a minimum of every 2 hours. Not only that, they can't be touched, they can't be fiddled with, adjusted, taken off. And how are you going to get school kids to follow these rules? It's insane, right? So that can't happen. The other study was actually a comparison between Finland and Sweden. So it was COVID-19 in schools, I believe the name was. Can't find it right now, but
That's okay.
they compared the two countries, right? And they found absolutely no difference in the locking down of the school children versus the children in school, right? And we know, I mean, you just look at the facts. Not one child under the age of 19 has died in Canada, with the exception of the one. Right? And again, you look into that, you talk about falsified data.
Yeah.
That, I believe, a 9-year-old in Toronto who died with COVID, but not from COVID.
Right.
So if, I don't know what happened with tragic circumstances, and I my
I
heart
believe it was, he went in with a cancer, from what I've gathered from some of the medical professionals that I've spoken with. So he was going in and they counted him.
Tragic.
Very.
And we can't let that type of stuff, because that's what they're trying to confuse the numbers, but it's zero. It's zero. You look at the deaths of children, and not only that, even the cases, I think it's something like 6.9% of the total cases come from this age group, under 19. So we say children, but that's teens as well. That's a big portion of our population, all the way up to 19. So they're not at any risk, and they're also not spreading it. So they're not getting it, they're not spreading it. We need to just stop with this craziness. Even with what we know about the immune systems, right? A really great professor and researcher, I think it's Dr. Nutt, I forget how to pronounce his last name, starts with a W, Wisconsin, I don't know. He talks about how herd immunity is supposed to work, and how in the event that these children who have the best immune systems, we know how real antibodies work, how the real immune system works. If they were to get it, then they would be immune to it. They would have the antibodies, and when they're challenged with it again, they're not going to be faced with it. So they're not going to bring it to their elderly grandparents in the fall, right? If kids had the opportunity to gain herd immunity, there would be no conversation, but that was robbed from them, because of the public health officials.
Right. Right. Yeah. Are you getting any feedback or whatever from like the parents or the teachers concerning the schools reopening?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. You have the parents that are God bless them, truly ignorant, and they don't know. And then the common sense parents, which again are the silent majority, they're saying, I don't want my kid in a mask, and I don't want my kids sprayed with hand sanitizer and all these draconian social distancing, put them in circles like they're in a third world country. It's just crazy. So I know a lot of, at least within our movement, and I don't want to be completely biased here, but within our movement, a lot of parents are talking about not bringing their, just doing homeschooling. Because they're not going to have it, right? And I don't blame them at all. I don't have kids, but that's what I'm hearing a lot of. And then even the common sense people that know this is just a reach, we'll see what they say when the time comes, right? And we'll see what happens at that time.
And it's concerning with the bills that they're pushing through without public input as well, right? Like as soon as the lockdown happened and Bill 188 came through, 3 readings, Royal sent one day, public had no idea about it. Like, who's to say they're not going to try to get your kid, or say somebody's come down with this in the school and then it's an emergency and they've locked your kids in this school and no one can go home until they've gotten a COVID test, right? And the parents have no idea. No idea. Because now they have the ability to do so.
Exactly.
It's terrifying.
Exactly. It's terrifying. And for those of us who are awake, we bear the heaviest burden here because we know and we see it. Like I said, God bless the ignorant, but ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. So if the masks are known to not work against COVID, what can you can you compare historically, what other reasons historically have been used to justify mask wearing? And could you apply them today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a muddy conversation because especially when you look at studies, I mean, you can make any point if you want to by looking at the studies, right? Like the pro-maskers could make their points just like any other conversation.
Right.
But it's actually quite interesting when you look at the literature, because I like to geek out on the studies, right? So I made an 11-page file of all the studies that have ever been done in the history of time on, so, and that's including all the, like the, meta-analysis and epidemiology stuff that's ever been done on masking, or, the use of masks, whether in public or in private, in hospital use. And, you start to see this pattern where there's no evidence that proves they're effective at all against providing any protection against viral, fine aerosol particles. And they have, of course, like we said, well-documented side effects. But so, like this was an excerpt from the New English Journal of Medicine, basically, and I'll, paraphrase here, but, masks serve as a talisman to show a symbolic sense of safety. Their main purpose is to show, and in my opinion, it's reinforcing fear. And I don't know, like I saw this with my own two eyes because I was in Ottawa on July 1st for Canada Day. There was no mandatory mask, and it was like a regular Ottawa day. People were out in the markets, no one was wearing masks, no one was afraid, no one was looking at anyone with weird gaze and weird look in their eye.
Yeah.
But now I'm getting reports that now that they have mandatory masking, it's a completely different atmosphere. People are afraid of each other. They're not standing near each other, right? So that's what masks are really doing. They're reinforcing fear for a virus that has a 99.7% survival rate.
Yeah, absolutely. So the same question, I guess, goes with social distancing. If social distancing is known to not work against COVID, what other reasons historically have been used to social distance the population?
Yeah.
And could that apply today as well?
Again, the scientific consensus here is there's no certainty. There's no level of certainty. I mean, you could take away the fact that we know social distancing has been used in senses of, like almost like warfare, like to really, and I don't want to get into that. That's more conspiratorial stuff. But to really change the psyche of people, to really break down their minds, that's what you would do, right? We're social beings. We need to be social. The fabric that holds us together. And you look at all these studies that show the number one thing that a human can do to increase their lifespan is have social connection. Right. So anything that goes against that is completely insane, just from a common sense standpoint. But even within the literature on social distancing, like I don't know where they came up with 6 feet,
Oh, I know.
Because there's no scientific fact. Actually, what I see is a lot of like 4 meters, 4 meters, not 2 meters. 4 meters. So how do you stay 4 meters apart from someone in a 2 meter or a 1 meter alleyway in a grocery store?
Oh, I know.
So it's crazy, and you see how a lot of the research on how far fine aerosol particles can go, how long they can be suspended in the air, and not to mention that we know you have to be in close contact with these people with symptomatic, positive COVID people for much longer than a brief passing. It has to be, I think, longer than 10 minutes, 15 minutes, right?
Right.
So I don't know where that social distancing stuff from.
Well, guess we'll find out eventually, but who do you advise people to listen to when it comes to accurate information concerning the pandemic? And who do you feel should be ignored?
Good question. You know what? I always say, and I've said this for many years, myself, spending a decade in researching vaccines, vaccine education, vaccine awareness. I always tell people, believe nothing you hear and half of what you see.
Right.
And that could be taken as dangerous and, a little bit naive. But really, I always say, especially with something like this that has been heavily politicized, we know the data has been falsified. Just listen to your gut. Like what feels right? You look around you, ask your friends, ask your people you know in your social circle, who's got COVID, who's died of COVID. You know,
Do you know anybody with any of these things?
Hospitals were never overrun. Never.
No.
Right? Over 80% of the deaths occurred in long-term care facilities. We know that. This was never a pandemic. So, we know they're falsifying the data. We know they're combining cases of deaths with and of. So it's not even a point. There's no point even to try to, find a good source. I like a lot of the stuff that a lot of the Canadian, Denis Rancourt is doing.
Oh, yes.
He's done some amazing work. And there's also consider everything. Andrew Kaufman, his questioning the entire narrative. Open your mind, think critically, and just think for yourself. That's all I can say.
Well, and then they're gaslighted, right? It's spun into this thing where some of these people are Nobel Prize winners, and now they're just quacks because they go against the government agenda.
Yep.
And that's not a conspiracy, folks. That's actuality. These people were the top of the top of the top until they said something the government didn't want them to say, right? Which brings me to my next comparison here. It's almost like being back at the beginning of the vaccine battle. So I'm going to ask you, do you see a comparison and a spin from the MSM of masks and anti-vaxxers or vaccines?
Absolutely. And we're all combined now. We're all groups, so it's great.
Yeah.
They by accident, I don't think it was their plan, but they use the term red pilled from the Matrix. They awoke a lot of people from doing this, from doing these draconian lockdown measures, not providing proof, not giving us full disclosure on why, by falsifying the data. They've woken up so many people now that say otherwise were not against vaccination, or they were maybe for pro-choice. Now they see the big picture because, before maybe they didn't care about vaccine, but now they do, right? Now it's personal. The parallels there are huge. And I also really find it interesting, the parallels between the verbiage or the language they're using with masks.
100%.
Right? Yeah, so we see that now where they're saying, nope, they're mandatory. You have to wear them. And that's the same thing they do with vaccines in schools, right? They're mandatory. Your child must get them. And then they use all the fear and coercion and manipulation to justify that statement. But they never comment and they never talk about the exemptions. And that's one thing that we're really, really vocal about right now, is that with the mask specifically, there are medical exemptions, there are religious exemptions, exemptions on age, and every single bylaw, and the government has very tactfully done this, and I applaud them on their way to pass the buck here. Instead of them mandating these unjustified, ridiculous laws, they're forcing the business owners to now enforce the laws, right? And the business
so they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Right, and they've just been out of business the whole time, right? They have losses that they've never faced in their lives. They need to get back, and they're being threatened by bylaw officers that they're going to be fined if they don't. And again, they're not being educated on the law. They're just business owners. They shouldn't have to know the law, right? And that's, again, it's the same thing with vaccine conversation. That's where we come in, because we have to educate not only the business owners, but the people, the customers, ourselves, on the bylaws and how the bylaws, and to quote Rocco Galati, constitutional lawyer, probably the best in Canada.
Absolutely.
He said, the exemption is the law.
Yeah.
So if they come in and say, no, you can't come in, you have to wear a mask, you say, I'm exempt, and they say, no, I'm sorry, it's the law, you can't come in unless you have a mask. You say, the exemption is the law,
Yeah.
So it's just a point. I digress.
Oh, I know that's a whole another topic too, right? We could go on forever about that. So at the pace the goalposts are being changed on normal, what behavior and expectations does society manifest in 1 year or 5 years? Do you feel like this is going to get worse, or what other new normals are you expecting that we're going to have to oppose?
I think, honestly, Amanda, I think the biggest atrocity of all of this is going to come from mental health. I think that we are going to see in the next following years, say 2 to 5 years, and maybe even longer, because a lot of this stuff is a lifetime, of damage. That we're going to see mental health be at an all-time high, an epidemic, a true epidemic height. When you talk about the correlation between unemployment and suicide rate, and one of our leaders, Matthew, he's out right now. He's been out on a housing strike for over 30 days, promoting mental health, making mental health visible. And I commend this young man because he knows exactly what's coming. And that's what we're going to see is the new normal is going to be, a country of depressed people, high in anxiety, afraid to talk to one another, afraid to shake hands. We cannot have this. We must stop this because that can't be the new normal. We have to get these kids to understand that, they have immune systems, that we're strong, we're resilient, we're self-healing and self-replicating. And when you're given the ability to recover, you will, and to not live in fear. Bring back love.
Yep, absolutely. And pharma's expecting you to run straight to them for the fix, right? So yep. Again, there's that. So are your support numbers increasing at this point, or have things kind of flattened out with the protest exhaustion kind of thing?
No, we did see the protest exhaustion for sure, especially in Toronto when they opened the patios. So we started to see a drop, but then it's the bait and switch. We know all about it, right? This is how they started. Oh, it's just going to be 2 weeks. It's just going to be 2 months, right?
Yeah.
They get you. So they got you with all the bars are open. Now you go in the patio. But then a week later, they go, well, masks are mandatory, right? So as they give, they take, and that's woken up more people. Now, exponentially more. So to answer your question, are we growing? Massively. I haven't had a chance yet to speak about the outreach teams, but basically at Hugs Over Mass, what we're doing right now is creating national outreach teams in every city across Canada. These are going to consist not of a huge amount of people, but 4 or 5 leaders within the community that care enough about their national prosperity, their health, and their children to get out and actually take action. So these outreach teams are going to consist of people handing out flyers, holding signs, and speaking to the public and the business owners. So we're doing that right now, and literally, we just started, we just kind of opened it up last week. We have right like this weekend, and this is two-sided. So we're going to have the outreach teams doing their activism, micro-activism during the week. And then on the weekend, in every single one of these cities, we're going to have festivals of life, which we've been doing in Toronto, right? To bring back the old normal. And it's, we always say, hugs are welcome here because this is what we want to bring back. So we want people to go out and do the work during the week, but then on the weekends, we need to build this community, right? We need to restore what we've had taken from us, and that is to celebrate our freedoms and rights and our lives. So every week on Saturday or Sunday in the cities, they're going to have these festivals. They're protests that we're literally celebrating life. So I have written down which cities, if I could find it.
That's okay.
So we're going to be this weekend, Toronto, on Saturday at Queen's Park. I don't know all the locations, but you can jump on Facebook and find us. We're going to be in Hamilton, London, Ottawa, Tsawwassen, BC, and Montreal. And we're growing fast. We're probably going to be all over Alberta, Winnipeg, Manitoba, it's growing.
That's amazing. That's so great. Now, do you find many of the numbers are coming from, how do I put this? Very pro-COVID to being very mousy coming in, or are they like, no, you're right?
It starts. Yeah, I know what you mean, right?
Yeah, right. I'm having a hard time with words today, so everybody excuse me.
Everyone has a different background. Like, so for me, coming from a background of being a vaccine-injured child, it was a no-brainer. As soon as I said, okay, this is about 2 things. It's either about resetting the global economy, right? Because I knew the lockdown would destroy small businesses, or it was about a vaccine and vaccine profits. And the more I started to see about the World Health Organization and the control and Bill Gates and the narrative and how everyone was parroting these same lines, I knew this was very much about a vaccine. So for me, I was right into it, right?
Yep.
It was around the end of March when I was fully invested in this being a complete scamdemic. But for some people, they just come in with a question. Maybe they don't feel comfortable. I spoke to a gentleman last week. He heard about us. He didn't want to wear a mask. He just didn't. He didn't feel like, he's from Jamaica. They have a way, they have a way of treating illnesses there. And he thought that, he's never been sick and no one he knows was sick. And he was tired of being in lockdown and he sure as hell wasn't going to wear a mask. So that's what brought him out, right? So he was kind of mousy to say, and then we have these conversations and they realize the real depth of what's going on. And then they wow, right? They open right up. And that's what we really see is truth will set us free. And all we need to get is that opportunity to speak to people. And then the truth, there's only one truth, right? The rest of it's lies. You have to keep lying every day, where all we need to do is tell the truth once.
Absolutely. And keep repeating it, because the draconian measures that are being taken are too shady.
Yeah.
And people are going, wait a minute, it was only supposed to be for this, but now it's for a whole year. Well, that kind of defeats that then, doesn't it? So, all right, well, what can one person do in a small community independently to have their voice or message heard in a non-destructive, meaningful way, anonymous or not?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. That's a great question. So, and that kind of ties back to Hugs Over Mass, what we're doing, right? Because you're not alone, and you shouldn't feel that one person should have to bear the load of all of this. All you have to do is reach out to us, and I guarantee you there's going to be more people in your city than just yourself. We have all kinds of small towns, and this is what we need to do. We need to network, and we need to build our community together. So reach out to us on Facebook, Hugs Over Mass, and or if you don't use Facebook, just Gmail, right? hugsovermass@gmail.com, and let us know where you're at, and we'll connect you with people in your area, because that's how we're going to do this. And we don't need a big army. What we want to have is 100 chapters, right? 100 groups, 100 teams in 100 cities with 100 people each. That's our goal. So that's what we want to put out there and manifest for the universe, is that's what we want to get, right? But again, even if it's only 4 people, 2 people even, you sit at an intersection and educate the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, I'm curious, but what kind of feedback has there been from law enforcement while you're walking or protesting? Are they with us? Are they looking for reasons to silence us? Firefighters, paramedics, teachers, business owners, what's your general take on that? Yeah,
actually, and they're very politically correct, right? So they don't divulge too much information, but the police force have been amazing. Law enforcement for us so far has been amazing. Going above and beyond, really, and this is a relationship that we've fostered, right? Because during the time that we were protesting, there was a lot of dynamic temperature in that arena, right? And without getting into too much of the political side of that, they really appreciated that we were there. We were not only there, we were respectful, we were courteous, but we were appreciative of their services and keeping us safe, right? With all these radical, more like Antifa, the radical groups, the police are there to help us and to keep us safe, and we know that. So they've been amazing with us, and part of me thinks that a lot of them see what we're doing and they know it's right. Yeah. I feel like that just by the way they go above and beyond. One example was on our first march ever. I was right at the front, and the police officer said, well, do you guys want to go on the street, right? And we didn't know we were allowed on the street. And we were like, well, can we? And he was just like, he just kind of smiled and gave us the go ahead. So we had full support, right? Again, above and beyond. So it's been great with law enforcement.
That's amazing. That is so good to hear. I'm really glad. And it's a shame that they can't voice their opinion while doing it, but at the same time, thank God for them.
Yeah.
Exactly. while walking, were most of the general public observing maskless?
It depends on where you are, and again, it depends on the climate of whether there's a mandatory mask bylaw or not. In Toronto, very mask heavy population, very heavily masked. In Hamilton, not so much when they're outside. Still, you know, get a mix up.
Yeah.
But it depends on the city, and it depends on a lot of different background, you know, demographics and everything like that. You know, who's wearing the mask. But we've had a couple really encouraging conversations where, you know, when we're doing our marches and we're educating people, I've seen people take off their masks. You know, we have a 5-minute conversation and say, here are the facts. And they go, you know what, you're right. I'm outside. I'm not near anyone. The whole idea was that masks, first of all, were supposed to be for sick people. Second of all, they were supposed to be used when social distancing wasn't feasible.
Right.
When you're outside walking, there's no one near you, right? And even, you know, even when they do pass you, that's not how COVID transmits. You have to be for an extended period of time. So as soon as they hear that, they get it and they go, you're right. So we're received pretty well, but it's a toss-up between who's wearing masks and who's not.
Yeah, I get it. So with the activists, the people that are showing up weekly, and there's another group, which would be the silent public.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get a lot of support silently? Like, people are obviously, there's still people who are afraid to go out and make the change. They're too afraid for whatever reason, right? Like, they may be seen, or, you know, they'll get fired if they get seen, that kind of, you know, discrimination. But do you get a lot of silent support? Yep,
absolutely. Yeah, the silent majority out there is huge right now. These are people that have, you know, told us in private that they're completely sick of the lockdown measures. They know they're not at risk. They know the individual risk based on age, you know, and they question the narrative completely. But also, what I'll say is they've admitted to us, a number of people, is that the vaccine will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So they may acquiesce right now to the masking, and they may be okay with the social distancing orders and, you know, all of this, but they've all confided in me that when the vaccine becomes mandatory or even compulsory, where they're, you know, limiting our say ability to travel or our ability to move without having the vaccine or proof thereof, that's when they will stand up, and that's when they will take to the fight. So
and where have we seen that before?
Right.
You know?
Yep.
History repeats itself.
Exactly.
And people just have the wool pulled right over their eyes. Like, all you need to do is look back at World War II, right?
I know.
And what do you see?
That's what I try to share with people. I say, you know, it's a lot easier to put out a fire before it starts than to wait until your living room is on fire and then try to put it out.
Yep.
It's
harder to get your rights back than it is to give them up.
You said it.
So I don't intend to give mine up.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
What's your opinion of the Gates Foundation and its work against COVID?
Absolutely against everything that they're doing. In my opinion, private interest has absolutely no place in public health. Anywhere that there is profit being made by a select few individuals absolutely must be removed from the conversation. And you just look at what's going on. You just look at the players, right? You have Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Health Organization, who's primarily funded by Bill Gates.
Gavi.
Right, exactly. And it's,
Fauci.
Right.
What is it?
Right.
Is it Navi? What's the one?
NIH.
NIH. That's what I'm thinking of. Yes.
It's and then it's just this almost incestuous circle of you know, people going from one company, from big pharma to public, you know, to the CDC or to the World Health Organization. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke, and the fact that people don't see that more clearly is, quite frankly, scary to me, because it's so obvious what's going on with these groups as far as the conflict of interest. And you know, I find it really unsettling when, when I say that you can't trust these people, and that they say, well, yeah, you should trust them. And I'm like, okay, but they're making trillions of dollars off of you.
Right.
I'm making nothing.
And I'm still waiting on a safety test for all the other vaccines against an inert placebo.
There you go. Right.
And what was it that RFK Jr. said today, that the man who was developing the COVID vaccine went on record to state they were going to test it against an inert true placebo this go round. So phase 1 was done. When phase 2 rolled around, they said, oh, wait a minute. No, we're going to do it against the meningococcal vaccine, which has a very high number in VAERS, which is the vaccine adverse events reporting system.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Right? Like,
just use the MMR. Why don't you just use a multi-dose as the
right?
placebo? Yeah, let's just give them a handful of vaccines. It's all the same, right?
It's ridiculous. It is so shady. So shady. But we won't get into that one today.
Yeah.
Which bills are currently in front of any legislators that need awareness of existence to attempt to defeat it? Do you know?
Oh, well, there was a few that have already been passed.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Bill 195 in Ontario, I believe it was just passed, right? Randy Hillier called that the death of democracy.
And I know he isn't wrong.
Yeah, and I know even Rocco Gladi just tweeted out saying that Bill 195 was, he called it the Return to Dictatorial Act, and said it belonged in the 1930s Europe, So wake up, people. But yeah, you have Bill 19 in BC, same thing, right? And that's the thing is, so I'd like to tell a little bit of a story here.
Okay.
For your viewers.
We've got time.
I actually joined this movement. Like I said, way back in March, when I knew that this was completely a plan, a narrative that they were going to do. The first thing that we did was a national mailing letter campaign. It was a group called Glorious and Free that myself and a patriot out of Gatineau started. And we successfully, through the united concerted action of hundreds of Canadians, we mailed thousands, upwards of above 5,000 letters within 10 days to our Prime Minister and to the party leaders of all the official parties in Canada. We did not get one reply.
Nope.
One reply from anybody. Justin Trudeau didn't mention it on Canada Day. Nobody has said anything about, and we were asking, end the lockdown, restore Parliament. Parliament must be essential, must be an essential service, just like the grocery store, right? It's essential. And common sense things. Vaccine must not be mandatory. We weren't even talking about masks yet because masks weren't even a part of the conversation,
Right.
But we did not get any attention from our political system. And I think there's a takeaway there for your viewers and for everyone at home, is that we have to stop relying. These bills, Bill 195 got passed. There were people against it. The one, I think it was an MPP that was against it, was
out of Cambridge. Yep.
Yeah. Like, what? This is not democracy, guys.
Nope.
So we have to stand up, stand together, say enough is enough, stop relying on these politicians, and come united in our own ground. And then we will tell them what's what. Because we have to stop. We have to stop letting them control this. Because they're not listening to us.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can people support you and your group? And tell them where they can make contact in order to get a hold of you guys and get some more information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they want to donate monetarily, that's fantastic. And where that money goes.
Yeah, so we're actually, we'll say this first, we'll introduce. So the group Hugs Over Mass, we are on Facebook, as I mentioned, Hugs Over Mass on Facebook. We also have a website, hugsovermass.ca, and our Gmail, hugsovermass@gmail.com. So that's how you can connect with us. Our Facebook is, of course, the most social place where you can see what we're posting, the events, the live streams, etc., interviews such as this. But then how they can help us. So the main thing is we don't need monetary compensation. We're not looking for money. We need people that excuse my language, that give a damn enough to do something, to get out and do something. We don't need money. We sell our t-shirts. That's a lot of the way we make our money, for signs, for the flyers, for everything like that. So every one of our outreach teams will be set up with shirts at the freedom celebrations on the weekends. So if you're in a city, Toronto, Hamilton, etc., reach out to us on Facebook, find where there's a festival, come out and check us out. That would be the best thing you could do. And honestly, when you talk about monetary compensation, like you're better off donating your money to Vaccine Choice Canada so it can get to Rocco Galati and really start that conversation, because that's where the big money goes. I think that's a very important part of this puzzle, this puzzle that we're in right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you have any interest in donating to the legal challenge, you can go to vaccinechoicecanada.com/donations, and that every cent goes towards the legal challenge, and it is very appreciated, and it's important to unify. So we have been kind of going around this, and I've been excited to kind of get into this, but I want you to tell everybody this amazingly huge announcement.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm so excited about this. So tell everybody.
Yeah, you're building it up now. I got to deliver. So I mean, really, really great. You know, we've talked a lot about our movement and what we're building, and it's gotten a lot of attention. So one of the absolute blessings that we got through a mutual connection of Vlad started Hugs Over Mass, was a connection with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. So, and again, we want to mention, we're building a movement here of leaders. We don't want to have all these outreach teams managed by us or run by us. We want to inspire and grow leaders, both young and old. So what we've done, we've partnered with Dr. Tenpenny, and we're offering an exclusive 8-week training program, a leadership training program, where she's going to share both in a question and answer format, and also like next steps, big vision, a really professional view on everything that we can do together to make the most out of this movement. And 8 weeks is a very specific number, because that's also right around the time that schools are going to be opening back up, right? Right around the time that the second wave is going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that's what's going to happen. So we need to be strong. We need to be organized. We need to be educated and informed. And Dr. Sherry Tenpenny is one of the best, right?
She's phenomenal. She's my one of my favorites, for sure. Yeah. For sure. I love her. And how do people find that information? Where do they go to sign up for this course? Because I'm signed up. I'm not missing this.
Awesome.
So where do people go to find that information and sign up?
Yes. So right off the bat, we have our first sort of introduction call this Friday, a Zoom call. And what you can do is go to Dr. Tenpenny. Here, sorry, I have it.
That's okay.
Yeah, drtenpenny.com/events. And right there, right in the middle, you see under upcoming events, you'll see July 24th, which is this Friday. It's free for everyone. There's 100 member spots, so please register now. And that'll be the introduction to the 8-week series. And then what we've done, again, through our partnership with Dr. Tenpenny, and because she really is fully invested in our movement, she loves what we're doing. She's offered us a special discounted rate for the 8-week program. So it's only $10 a week. So for $10 a week, training from, one of the best voices in the movement. So we're truly blessed and honored to have this partnership, and we can't wait to get it started.
Oh, hands down, she's the best, and that's amazing. And now, do you think this would be something that would be an ongoing thing for new people coming in to get into as they find you guys, or is it just a one and done?
Absolutely, no. We're definitely going to continue with the leadership training. It's a constant. You know how it is, right? Yes. It never ends, right?
No.
I know that. Dr. Tenpenny has her own boot camp plans and stuff like that. So for your viewers, they can stay tuned also for her and check out the site, and I'm sure they'll release that It may be, I may be divulging too much information, but from what I understand, she does plan to do more training style stuff in the future.
That's incredible. That's so
Yeah.
good. Well, I'm excited for that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people I know that are getting ready to hop on that and sign up now as well. So thank you guys for everything you do. It's absolutely incredible. I can't thank you enough personally. And I'm so glad that our groups have unified now for one common cause.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you for sitting down with me today. And I think my internet connection is actually getting lost here. But for those of you who are interested in donating to the legal challenge, vaccinechoicecanada.com/donations. As well, if you haven't checked it out already, you want to go to 1986, The Act, Dr. Andy Wakefield's movie, which gives a detailed rundown in a film format about how the corruption has kind of come into play over, well, forever, and since the 1986 Act was put into play, and how it's changed from that point forward. As well, you want to go to vax2.com, check that movie out. Everybody needs to see it. It is the people's truth. And I look forward to speaking with you all, and I hope I get to talk to you again. I know the connection isn't very good. I can see you frozen. Are you still there?
Have I?
You're frozen, but I think I can. It's all right. We'll get it going.
Maybe it's my connection here. I don't know.
That's okay. We can still hear you, so it's okay.
Okay.
So thank you so much. Is there anything you want to add before we take off here?
No, I just want to say thank you again for your time. Thank you for your viewers' time. I want to encourage everyone to remember to always come from a place of compassion and promote peace, love, and positivity always.
Yep. And remember, guys, we have nothing to gain by trying to sway you one way or another. I mean, we've been here for a long time. We've seen what this kind of system does to individuals and to our children. We're constantly out there getting bashed by the trolls. So you can take what you will from, oh, you're back. Take what you will from that. We have nothing to gain by spreading disinformation. So take that. And also, I just wanted to mention, as of today, the WHO and the CDC have switched their guidelines to be for masks. As of yesterday, it was still not required for healthy people. But today it fits the narrative. So we're just going to end with that. I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much. I appreciate talking with you, and hopefully we get to do it again soon. I'd love an update as you guys build and build and build. Other than that, have a great day, guys, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you.